one of the other challenges too is the measurement of dose. So like, so people who are very cannabis familiar will, they'll have a joint or a blunt and they'll just fucking smoke that thing. Like, and they'll watch me and they look really cool when they do it. And I look like a robot, like I pull it into my mouth like I would a cigar. So I know it's just one mouthful of smoke. And then I'll let it cool down a little bit in my mouth before I actually inhale. And then I'll breathe in a full inhale of all that cool air. So I'm not roasting my lungs and coughing a bunch, but I'll do it in this very kind of mechanistic way. And definitely all of the cannabis familiar people will be like, what a dork. And I'm like, I get it. I'm not the cool guy blowing this out of my nose, blowing it half out, sucking it back in. Fucking no, I'm not Gandalf the weed smoker here. Sorry, everybody. But I'll just be very measured with it. And I think that was, I don't know if people still do this. It seems like it's gone out of favor, but back, in college and stuff, like bongs were big, right? Like you just have this whole tube of smoke and you suck the whole thing down and clear it. And it's like, fucking terrible idea. How much is that? What do you know?
It's brutal. And also at the same time, I've never seen people hit the floor quicker than when they're hitting bongs, right? Especially gravity bongs. Remember people making those things in bathtubs back in the day with like, a 2-liter bottle or whatever, where they're essentially like sucking it down and they're taking this gigantic hit. And like at the end of the day, like that's also stressing your lungs, it's stressing your throat. And like, cannabis will have a sympathetic
Ryan's
response.
laughing. He must have done this.
Yeah, guilty as charged.
He must have done this before.
Guilty as charged. I tried it so other people don't have to, And it's like so many people do this. The same thing with concentrates too. I was in Las Vegas and, I was very used to interacting with concentrates at that point in my life because I was in the industry and I was interacting with hash all the time. But I went to this dab bar and for some reason, I don't know what I was doing, but I decided to pick 2 sativa dabs, right? So I did these dabs and I literally didn't feel like I had legs anymore. And so I didn't know at any point, like I'm standing around all these people, I'm like, am I just going to hit the floor? Because like I knew I wasn't like so high that I thought I was going to hit the floor because I was out of control, but I could not feel my legs. And so I was like, how do I know if my knees are going to buckle? And so those kind of things are just like things that now I only use the Volcano. Yeah. Because for me, I'm not looking once again now to get as high as possible. I'm looking to get just beyond the threshold of normal consciousness so I can start to see what's just out of the way of me that then I can pick up the message for. Yeah. Because when you integrate, which I really think is not an optional thing, if you want to interact with these substances as a medicine, right, which there's no judgment, you can use them however you want, but if you want them to be able to act as a teacher of medicine, then you need to integrate. That's where the real work is. And so now, because I've been able to integrate and actually like take the action, like you were saying with your buddy who was the musician, right? Like it's not just about praying, right? It's about praying and moving your feet, as Paul says, right? And so being able to do both of those, where now I come out of the experience and I go, okay, the next week I'm going to be sober and I'm going to integrate this because that's how I interact with cannabis. I only use it on weekends. And that's specifically because what I've found is that with my pattern I've run in the past with unconscious use, that's just what works for me. And so for people listening, I don't know if there's a right and wrong way to interact with cannabis or a right or wrong amount. This is just my personal way of doing it. And it's also the way that Hamilton Souther and other shamans that work with this medicine speak about interacting with it. They do that to preserve the transcendental and spiritual properties of it, which is now my main intention with it. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm only interacting with it twice per week. But now that I've been able to integrate and actually take the lessons and messages that cannabis is showing me and actually apply them to my life, I don't need as much cannabis because my life is becoming a psychedelic experience. Right. I'm not literally tripping and fractals are coming up, but I'm experiencing the magic within these experiences. And I imagine you've had the same thing, right? Like that's the real beauty of what these medicines do is show you what's already possible in your life. And that's, I think, why so many people get dependent on cannabis specifically because there's no guidance, but also they're living in discomfort of some sort or they're curious. They experience this new experience. They go, that felt better than my normal experience. Well, what do I do to feel that all the time? Must need more of it. And they miss the step of like, no, the real message of this plant, like Terrence McKenna said, is to get the message and then hang up the phone for a little while and assimilate that and integrate it. Mm-hmm. So then your life can start resembling the magic of these experiences.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember, for a while, I had a buddy who was just, again, one of those like could not possibly have enough cannabis. So he went from smoking joints to then smoking dabs to whatever, glass and shatter and hash and all of this. And he was so irresponsible with it and he would be doing it. And whether he was encouraging it or other people were just seeing what he was doing, they would try to do what he did, and he could literally kill an entire after party. Where all of the sudden everybody was dancing and having a good time and we're just all having a blast. And then people are fucking dropping like flies. And I'm like, bro, stop. Just fucking stop. Like we were having so much fun before you came in here with your fucking super glass concentrate shatter hash. Like fucking stop.
Yeah.
Like no, and eventually just was like, stopped inviting him. Like, no, done. You're done. You're not invited.
It's such a thing, man, where like I experience a lot of the same things where at parties, people are looking to smoke joints right off the bat. And I'm like, guys, again, no judgment, just curious observation. Like, what is your intention for this party? Do you want to be on the couch the whole time? Like, it's one thing if you're going to interact with nitrous or something, you're going to be on a couch, but like cannabis is just going to put you on the couch because it's very relaxing in most cases, right?
Yeah, well, nitrous also is going to be about 2 minutes.
Yeah, and then you're going to need
fucking
hit.
Pop out.
Yeah,
like, whoa, that was wild. And it's not saying to endorse nitrous for whatever reason, but it's limited.
Yeah,
it's not a party ender.
Yeah, cannabis is an end game. That's what I always say. It is an end game. You know. It's powerful, man. Like, and I think a lot of people, because they use it so frequently, this is again the set and setting thing. This happened to me where I was interacting with it daily. I was like, oh, I know this plant, right? I know it, but I didn't know anything at that point because I didn't really know myself. And as within, so without, right? The Hermetic principles and law of correspondence. If I don't really know who I am, then how much am I going to be able to understand who anyone is or any plant is or anything? And I think that's where a lot of people get in trouble. And it's the thing with the hash too is it's so funny. I see people that. It's real. There's no difference between how you interact with cannabis and alcohol, tobacco, et cetera. Like I think a lot of people, especially in the industry, glorify like, oh, I'm smoking all day and doing all these things. I'm like, guys, you're numbing something out. Like in most cases, like unless you're extremely experienced, and I have met some individuals that have an extremely positive relationship with cannabis and use it frequently. But in most cases, these people are numbing things out. And I know that from working with over 5,000 of them, that when I get a little bit under the surface and I'm like, how are you doing? And they're like, good. And I'm like, how are you really doing? They're like, shitty, And I'm like, okay, so what's really going on here? And I think that's another big distinction that I really want to bring to the surface with cannabis is that, listen, just because, you might not get physically addicted to it, there are opportunities for you to become dependent on this medicine. Yeah. And it's because if you're living in discomfort, and then you're interacting with a feminine medicine that can provide feelings of comfort, and you continue externalizing your power onto that, it's the same thing as being addicted to your mother, right? And being afraid to leave the nest or any of these things. Yeah. Or, coming home after a long day and having drinks, right? To forget about your day. It's really the energy behind how you're doing it that makes it the relationship it is.